We're going to go over how to add buttons and labels and inputs to your app. So normally or generally so far in computer science, you've been using the terminal for the most part. So you'd have a console, and then here's where you print things out, or where you get input from the user. But when we are creating interfaces, graphic user interfaces, that we want the user to be able to interact with our code. So what we end up doing is that we create buttons and labels and inputs that the user can type it in, as opposed to having to use the terminal every time. Okay, so to do that, you're going to go to res. There's two res folders. You're going to pick the top res folder, and then you're going to do layout. And inside of layout, you're going to find an activity.xml. This file has something called a drag and drop graphic user interface builder, or GUI builder, or GUI builder. And it also has the code behind it, so you can work with either one. I would go here for design, and I'm going to grab a few things. I'm going to grab a button, so I'm just going to drop it down. The buttons are found here where it says common and then buttons. From here, you can just drag and then drop it. And then I am going to get rid of this text, and I'm going to get my own text view. And then I am also going to go where it says text, and I'm going to get a plain text. This is an input. And what this allows me to do is lets me create the user interface as I want it to. Now, the first thing that you'll need to do is grab this constraint and then pull it all the way to the top. I'm going to undo that, and then I can show it with a different option. So I can grab this constraint, sort of the right side of this label, and I can say I want it to be held right here to the right side. And then you can create different options with that. If you want two things side by side, I can say I want this one to be right next to it, and they're going to be sort of stuck together moving forward. So as you constrain things, as you hold things together, you also want to give it some sort of padding. So I'm going to go here to the top, and then on the right side, you'll notice that there's a layout widget, and then I can pick some padding. I can do 32 pixels if I want. So it's going to keep it constrained to the top regardless of what the size of the phone is, but it's always going to give it that padding of 32 pixels. And then for this one, I am going to constrain it to that text view, but right now I don't have any padding, so I'll click on that input view, and then I will give it a padding of 32 as well. And then you'll see that now they're stuck in. Regardless of what size of the screen you have, they're always going to have that padding between them, and they're going to be a little bit far apart. Now, you'll notice here that I still have some red warning signs. This means that I've created some constraint, which is the vertical constraint, but I haven't done the horizontal constraint. So I'm going to want to right click on that, and then I'm going to go to center and then do horizontally and parent. And now that I've done that, it changes to yellow, which means it's okay. And we'll get rid of that yellow one eventually. This one's also constrained vertically. And I also want to be able to horizontally constrain it within the parent. Now it's happy, and now I have this button. This button, I want to put it right in the center of the screen. If I do vertically for center, it's going to put it in the center. It's going to calculate the center between the closest neighbor or the closest component and then the bottom of the screen. But that doesn't, I might want to do that at some points, but that doesn't really help me in this case. So what I will want to do is still just center it vertically in parent, and then I also center it horizontally in parent. And now I'm right in the middle of my screen. I want to change what this button says, so I'll click on it, and I'll go here to text, and I will just type in search, because that's what I want it to say moving forward. This one, instead of name, I don't really want someone to put a name. I said type your handle. Perhaps that's what I want my input to be. And then this one at the top, I want to give a nice welcome message, and then I'll change it accordingly. So I can change the text for all of them. Whenever you click on any component, you'll notice that there's a lot of attributes that you can change. There's many things here to change. You can change the text size, you can change the colors, you can change the text color, you can change the way that the background looks, you can change the radius. So if I go here and I do radius, corner radius, what this is going to do, let's say if I give it a 5 radius, then it's going to make this a little bit more rounded. And then again, if I do a little bit more, say I do 20, and then now I have a more circular one. And you can continue to sort of round out the edges by doing that. Anyway, so now I have my search button. I can change the colors if I want. I can change some of the radius. That should be good. So what I will do moving forward is I will connect this to some code. Okay, the first thing that I want to do to be able to connect that button to some code, because I want that button to call code. And if I can say, when you click on this button, call this code, then I can really do anything that I want. So I'm going to create a method. This method goes in main activity, and be careful not to put it inside of onCreate, because that's a different method. You can't do two methods inside of each other. And then I want to do, it's not going to return anything. And this is not a public method, this is a public method. And then I want to call it testing method, something very generic. And I'll go back here, and now what I want to do is I want to connect this button to that method. So I will go to onClick, and here in onClick I should be able to see some methods, but right now I don't. And the main reason why you would get that is because you haven't given it the option to have some view. So you have to connect that method to some view, and I'll call this view main screen. Now if I go back here, here, and I open up onClick again, you'll see that testing method's on. I'll click enter, and I'll be able to click on that button and then make things happen within my code. So for now, I'm just going to do system.out.println, and I'm going to say it's alive. So what I will then go to is when I run this code, sometimes I get this, and you'll see that linking failed. I can go to build up at the top and then clean project, and then I can rerun my project, and it should then sort of clean things up. Again, if this is also going wrong, then you can look for any errors that you might have. So right here, if I go back here, it tells me that I have an error in my corner radius. I will change that. I will remove that for now, and I will leave it without a corner radius. So careful if you have any errors within your code. Okay, so now that I have this button, I should be able to go to run, and inside of run, I'm going to get things printed out. Every time that I click on it, I see my printout, which I created earlier. So it looks like my button is now alive. I also want to make these alive. I want to be able to type things in. I want to be able to change things in this text field. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to go to main activity, and I am going to create a text view, and I'm going to call this result view. And this text view is going to display the result of my search. But as of now, I can't really use that text view. I can't do anything with it because I haven't connected it to the code, to the design. So I'll click on this text view, and the first thing that I want to do is I want to make sure that I give it a good ID, because I might have different text views and I won't know which one's which. So I'll click on results view here where it says ID, and I'll click refactor. So to do that again, you click on the actual component, you go to the attributes on the right side, you go all the way to the top where it says ID, and then you type it and press enter. Now that I've done that, I can go back here, and I have this variable, which I haven't initialized. I haven't said, okay, this is where it is. So I have to connect it. to, again, the design. And then here I'll go text view. And what I'm doing here is I'm just going to say I'm going to find some component, and that component will be a text view, so I'm guaranteeing that it will be a text view. And then I do this dot and then find view by ID, and I will let it autocomplete. The reason why I let it autocomplete, one, it's faster, but two, it takes away from me making a mistake when I'm writing some of these longer methods. r.id dot, and then I'm going to look for my results view, autocomplete, and then semicolon. When I do this, I'm saying find this view called results view, the ID, from the design. I'm going to guarantee that this is a text view, and a text view is just something where you can display text, and then just call it, no, use it in a variable called results view. And over here, I'm going to go to results view. When I click on my button, I'm going to set the text in results view. I'm going to call it it's alive. And then I will run my app, and whenever I click on that button, I should see it's alive being printed out on the console, but I should also see it up there in my text view, and my text view shows it successfully. So that's working. Now the last thing is I want to make sure that my input is working. So I'm going to give it an ID. I'm going to call it input view. I'm going to refactor it. I'm going to go back to my main activity, and this is called an edit text. So I'm going to call it an input view. Now you see whenever I click, I just type in edit text, I always autocomplete it. And this is one of those things that will become useful for you. I autocomplete it because it does some of the imports for me. If you're noticing that it's not working or it's not showing, it's because you don't have any of these imports, or maybe you just typed that out yourself and it's going to say, hey, I don't know what an edit text is. So let it autocomplete. Same thing for something like view. You want to make sure that you autocomplete that. And again, here you have your imports that Android Studio does that for you. It imports them whenever you just autocomplete it. So I go input view. I'm going to find that input view. Again, this is an edit text. I'm going to do this dot. I'm going to find it by some ID. This is going to be called the input view ID. And then I will be able to use it moving forward. So if I want to get some value from the input view, I save it in a string. So I'm going to go input val. And then I'm going to say from this input view, get the text, turn it into a string, save it in a variable, and then I'm going to be able to use that variable whenever I want. Input val here, input val here. Perfect. Now that I have this, I can run my app, and then what I'll be able to do is I'm going to get the text that the user inputted it, and then I'm going to show it and print it. For now, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to say hi, search. This turns to hi, and I printed it out. So I'm able to now get input, then use it. Why is this helpful? Well, imagine if you wanted to post a tweet, and you wanted to post a tweet from inputting something here on the screen. Well, instead of having to type it in every time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this Twitter controller available to everyone by just declaring it outside of this method. Then I'm going to remove the type so that I can just initialize it, and then I can do my post tweet, which is fine. I can do that, but instead I'm going to go here and I'm going to say my post input val. What that would do is that it would then post the tweet with that input val. I can also do other things. I can call my controller, my C, and then say maybe find user stats, and then you'd input a val there, and I'll be able to then search for a specific value on Twitter from what was inputted on the screen. Now you are free to design this as you want. There's a design on the design document that tells you how to lay it out, but if you want to do something different, you can do that. And that should be it.